If you'd like to make your NFL games a little more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, classic journeyman. But it helped me get all these podcasts, get all these jobs, which is awesome. Thank goodness I was good enough to play for a while to get these other gigs. You can check me out on social at Ross Tucker NFL. All the podcasts always available at Ross Tucker Pod on social media. It's where we post the clips as well as when the shows are ready, as well as youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. More and more people telling me they watch the show on YouTube, which is amazing. People sending me screenshots of me up on the big screen, which is terrifying because of how big my head is, but whatever. The star of this show, though, it's Steve Fezzik. You guys know that. At Fezzik Sports on Twitter. Only at Fezzik Sports, by the way, except no imposters. The only 2-time winner of the Super Bowl of professional football gambling, the Super Contest at the Westgate Casino out there in Vegas, where Steve resides. And speaking of our beloved DraftKings, very excited about today's guest. His name is Julian Edlow. You can follow him on Twitter at Julian Edlow. I like this. He's a DraftKings content specialist. He's not like a content provider. He's not like an analyst. Specialist in any endeavor in life, Julian, it just sounds good. Like if you come in, you're a finance specialist, or like that doesn't look good on your MRI. You're going to have to see the specialist. It sounds good when you're the guy that they bring in because you're the specialist.
A lot of people that bring me onto shows just call me a DraftKings analyst, but I appreciate that you went ahead and looked at my role, which I wish I could take credit for saying like, hey, I want to be called a specialist. No, that's just the job title that DraftKings hired me as and that I go by. But yes, I mean, it's an interesting, if people follow on like gambling Twitter, it's been an interesting week for like content creators and what their intentions are. When you work for a book and whatnot, my intentions are to provide you with winning plays on DraftKings Sportsbook. So that's the role of a content specialist. We'll get that out there.
So I think it's very interesting that you said that. Check him out, by the way. At Unreasonable Odds is the podcast he does with Steve Buchanan, another guy that'll be on this show at some point. I've been on the show. It's an awesome show. He does DFS stuff. He does all kinds of betting stuff. We're going to get into some of the college hoop stuff he has, including some plays for games that are tonight. But I have not been following gambling Twitter, so I do not know what you're talking about, Julian. What has been the debate the last couple of days?
I won't get too much into it. We'll just say that there is a content specialist or whatever their specific role is, that a sports book promoted, and it came out that person was not a long-term winning bettor. So the debate was that a sports book should not be pushing people towards a, losing bettor. And that created a lot of controversy about what people's roles are. And I ran a poll on my Twitter saying, are you happy with my transparency? Do I help you win money? And we got about 8% of the votes that were no. There's a lot of trolls on Twitter. I'll take a 92% in my favor and say that means that I'm doing my job. People like me. I'm helping you. You think I'm transparent. So that was really the point of it. You have a name, DraftKings, attached to you. There's plenty of trolls out there. Oh, I'm trying to lose you bets and make my company DraftKings money. I have a reputation. I bet on these things. I want to win. So yeah, I mean, that's that. I'm a man of the better, and hopefully you do it on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah, it's interesting, Steve, because I mean, I don't think anybody out there is really purposely giving plays for people to lose. Now, Listen,
If I tried
it's not easy to win.
to give losing picks, they would just wind up winning. Like that's the way it works.
You know what I mean, Steve? I don't think anybody's. I find it hard to believe anyone would be like purposely giving out losing bets. And by the way, it's so hard, and so many people are around 50% anyway. That how would you even know?
Exactly right. I got to address this because I've spoken about this. The betting advice by the betting media experts, it's all fraud. Yahoo Sports, ESPN, all these betting experts, none of these guys bet for a living. None of them. They don't win. But like you said, Ross, they all hit 50, 49, 52%. One of Yahoo Sports' 10 sports betting experts during the NBA playoffs was Clucko the Chicken. Clucko made their top 10. Can you imagine an investment show? Oh, we've got our 10 best mutual fund analysts, and Clucko the Chicken is number 8 to tell you what stocks to invest in. It's just a joke. It's just put pretty girls and good-looking dudes that are entertaining out there. They're not even trying to win. Now, having said that, I'm talking about the companies. The individuals absolutely are trying to pick winners. They're doing their best. They're not qualified. None of these guys have ever worked for a betting syndicate or actually done this themselves to make a living. You know why? Because the dudes that actually make a living doing this, they're boring. They're not entertaining. They're not attractive. And no one wants to listen
That's wrong.
to that.
You're wrong, Steve. First of all, I think you're a fine-looking man. Secondly, you're not boring at all. You're very entertaining.
Well, there's exceptions to every rule, and I just mainstream whacked out everybody. But there's guys like I'm buddies with Doug Kazarian, very sharp guy that can make a living betting on sports. Joe Fortenbaugh, the Cheetah. There are limited guys out there that absolutely can do it, but they are very few and far between. It's hard to win betting sports.
So it's interesting, Julian, because what I thought you were going to talk about, or what maybe the buzz was this week, was the Calvin Ridley news. And I'm like, you know how little people know about betting when something like this comes out and like the takes are all fire. Like, why shouldn't he be allowed to bet on bet on games? Like, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? That, or the other one I saw, which I loved, was so why can't he bet on games? And then it was like, the NFL is making so much money off of them. They should, yeah. The players get almost 50 cents on every dollar. What are you talking about? People, the one thing that's clear, Julian, from the Ridley news is how little people really know about betting.
For sure. It does show, and you have people like Steve was talking about, non-bettors that now want to have a take on betting. And that's usually not a good thing, and it probably wasn't a good thing in this situation. Now, for Calvin Ridley, if you're in the NFL, and Ross, you were in the NFL, like, there's just one rule: just don't bet on NFL games. Like, that should be easy. You're making money in the NFL, just don't bet on NFL games. And I know he was out, and he's betting on, his own team in one of his parlays. It clearly wasn't an inside information bet. He just made a dumb decision. Now, does he deserve to be suspended for that? Yeah, it was very poor judgment. You're an NFL player. Don't make an NFL parlay. Make an NBA parlay instead. You can do that. But yeah, I just think, it's two different stories. Number one, it's a terrible decision-making by Calvin Ridley. Make better decisions. But number two, and that's because these type of situations, like, people always use the Pete Rose example, like, oh, I was only betting on my own team. But yeah, then you gas out your bullpen that night to win, and it leads to a loss the next night. Like, there's repercussions. So you cannot do it. I'm firmly in that camp. But also the people that have opinions here, like, all it was a poor decision by Calvin Ridley. And I think it's as simple as that. And he deserves to be punished, and he was punished.
Here's the point I would make, Steve, and I want to get your opinion on this. The explosion of legalized sports betting makes it harder for guys to actually bet and get away with it. because it's legalized, because they're all partners with the NFL, because they have the technology. If a guy really wanted to do this, don't you think it would have been easier, Steve, 10 years ago if he did something with an offshore book? I mean, these guys now, like people are like, oh, because it's legal now, this is going to happen all the time. Really? Because they caught him pretty easily.
I'm actually going to disagree. I think it's much easier now than it's ever been, because if you're Calvin Ridley, obviously you're not going to set up some account in your name, offshore, whatever, to be betting. But now all I need to do is call one of my guys, and he can make the bets for me. And that actually is easy. And I'm going to put an over-under. You guys address this on NFL players that bet on the NFL. I'm not talking fantasy teams. I'm talking actually make bets. But obviously they don't bet themselves. They have buddies bet them for them. I'm going to say 10.5. You want to go over or under?
10.5 NFL players betting on games?
Having someone bet for them.
Yeah, definitely under.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Look, I might be wrong. Maybe I'm naive, but man, it's just not worth it. I mean, now, the thing I think is interesting is that's not the same as a buddy saying, hey, do you think you'll win this week? And you say, yeah, I think we will. I think we're going to kill them. Which, by the way, don't ever listen to a player that says that. They always think they're going to kill them. They always think they're going to play well. So that's a whole different deal. The other thing is, Steve, 3, 5, and 8 team parlays. He made $500 bet each on 3 and 5 and 8 team parlays. Can you please explain to Calvin why that was not a good idea? And I'm not talking about getting suspended. I'm talking about the parlays.
Yeah, so mathematically, the 3-team parlay is fine. If you started with $100 and you bet on the first game and then took your winnings, parlayed it into the second game, and then the third game, you'd wind up with $700, a little bit less. If you actually played as a 3-team parlay, you wind up with $700. That's all good. When you go to the fourth leg of the parlays, that's where the sportsbook cheats you. That's where the sportsbook short pays you versus what your true odds are. A lot of books only pay 11-1. Some books only pay 10-1 on a 14 parlay. So think about it. After you've hit 3 teams, you now have $700. If it pays 11-1, you're essentially risking the $700 to win $500 on the fourth leg of the parlay. You're laying minus 140 when you get to that fourth leg of a parlay. So never play a 4 or 5 teamer. Max out your parlays at 3 teamers, unless you're playing baseball or money lines, and then you get the true odds, and then you can take whatever I just said and throw it in the garbage can. This is against the spread betting. Don't play 4 and 5 team parlays.
Let's figure out what we should be playing in college hoops. Now, I will say this, Julian. Steve talked about this last week. He's a huge conference tournament guy.
Yep.
He believes there's a lot more value. Steve, say it again to Julian so he can hear it.
Yeah. So
why do the pros like conference tournaments more?
Because in the big dance, everyone has the same amount of rest. Everyone is all in. Everyone is 100% motivated. You're not going to find situational plays that are exceptional. Contrast that with the conference tournaments, where oftentimes you get an extremely rested team against a team that maybe had to play the late game the night before. Also, you've got some teams that have questionable motivation, whether they even want to win their conference because they're looking forward to the big dance. And you have situational stuff like last night, Chattanooga, for instance, had a coast-to-coast job in the semifinals, and they were playing Furman, who had a game that was tough as nails in the semis. So Chattanooga had the rest edge. Nuga was down 10 at halftime, still was able to win the game.
Julian, before we dive into some of the things you like for this week, some of the games are even tonight, and conference tournament, I need to make sure everybody is ready for March Madness. You know how you do it? Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues. Look, I have gut health issues. I'm loving Athletic Greens. Costs less than $3 a day. It actually tastes pretty good. I hadn't really heard of it until they started sponsoring the show. Now, everybody out to Andrew Brandt on the Business of Sports. Everybody evidently takes this thing, and it tastes pretty good. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Helps everything. Energy, recovery, focus, immune system, aging, everything. I said everything. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/money. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/money to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Julian, take ownership over a couple picks, couple bets. You heard what Steve had to say about why he likes conference tournament more than March Madness. Do you agree, Julian? And what are you thinking about for this week?
I do agree. And Steve laid it out nicely. It's just you're getting different spots in the conference tournament, different rest, different motivation, different look ahead spots and whatnot. Whereas in March Madness, the rest evens out. There's no questionable motivation. I'll contradict myself a little bit, I guess, by saying my 2 favorite days of the year are the Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament. Those are the most fun to watch. And I'm going to bet them. But strictly as a bettor, I think you're getting better spots in these conference tournaments. And I really want to go out to Vegas for these conference tournaments. That's something I haven't experienced yet. I will be out there for the first 4 days of March Madness this year. So I'll be out there, I don't know, with the squares betting the March Madness games, which obviously we're all going to do. But the conference tournaments are where it's at. I'll start. Hopefully you get to this one early. The 4:30 tip in the ACC tournament. Some money's actually been coming in on NC State. It was 5.5, dipped to 4.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I think it's settled in at about 5. I don't understand why. I want to fade NC State. It's not like I have too much nice to say about Clemson. They've been all over the place in ACC play this year. They have won 4 in a row and covered 3 of them coming in here. They're just kind of the best of the worst. Everybody playing on Tuesday in the ACC stinks, but I think Clemson's kind of the best of the worst. NC State has been just awful. They've been getting blown doors by everyone. They've won one of their last 10. One of their last 11. They only covered once in their last 11. I think the throttling just continues. I think this is going to be kind of like a wire-to-wire Clemson. You can go first half if you want. I laid it for the game. Clemson's in trouble after this, but I think just fading it. I'm going to say fade NC State. I'm not going to say too many nice things about Clemson here.
All right, so this never happens, but we have breaking news on the show right now, Steve. Aaron Rodgers is returning to the Green Bay Packers, according to Pat McAfee. So it's probably too late.
I'll say Rappaport threw this out here. Rappaport put it out like 10 minutes ago that this is happening.
Oh, interesting.
And
okay.
Devontae Adams will be tagged.
Oh, okay, great. I just saw Schefter retweeted Pat McAfee. My question is, Steve, in real time right now, by the time people listen to this or watch, it's too late. But as soon as that comes out, right now, you're probably mad at me that you have to be on this and can't be betting things. What are you hitting right now, Steve?
Well, obviously, you look at division, and some people bet the Vikings to win the division, and Vikings 50-1, trying to get ahead of the fact Rodgers might not return. Well, throw those bets into the garbage can, and that's why I got to tell you, the true pros, the ones that I work closely with, they don't like to buy on rumor. They like to buy on fact. They like when this comes out and they're working 24/7. And then within 2 minutes of the news breaking, they're betting Green Bay to win the division. Season wins aren't up, but obviously if they had been, you'd be banging Green Bay to go over 10.5 or 10 wins right now because they're probably going to close. Well, they're probably going to close 10.5 to 11. What do you think? 11 wins, Green Bay, Ross? Season win?
I don't know how you don't go. I don't know how you don't go over. They keep winning 13, 14 games every year. I guess one of these times he's not going to be the MVP and they're not going to play that well. But so far, that's been the theme for them. So interesting, very interesting about this Aaron Rodgers news. I'm not surprised. I predicted earlier on Dan Patrick's show that this is going to happen. Why would his agent be meeting with the team's contract guys so much if he didn't want to play there anymore? That never made sense to me. Like, I never understood the logic. Why would they be having all these meetings just for him to say, no, the $50 million is not good enough? I'm going to go ahead and play somewhere else. So That doesn't make sense to me. What does make sense to me is more thoughts from Julian on some college hoop stuff. And by the way, everybody bets the first 2 days of March Madness. Steve, are you really going to tell me you don't bet the first 2 days of March Madness?
No, I make lots of bets, but most of them aren't against the sides.
So what you're saying is you just don't think there's as much value as the conference tournament.
That's correct. Now, the value in the big dance is the props. Over, under. How many games is the Big Ten going to win? I think the Big Ten stinks this year, so that's a prop. I'll be playing Big Ten wins under, by example. So I'm going to go deeper into the menu board, similar to the Super Bowl. And because there's so much that and product that's available, that's what I and a lot of the pros I know will be betting. As far as the sides, trying to find a game that's mislined by more than 1 point, almost impossible.
So when does that come out? Like the Big Ten wins?
We got to see the bracket
on
first.
Monday and Tuesday next week.
Okay, so as soon as the bracket comes out or shortly thereafter, then you're able to try to get in on it. Interesting. All right, Julian, give me another one. Give me maybe like a conference tournament winner or something.
Yeah, I got two more for you that I've put in and I put out on articles on the DK playbook this morning. I'll give you a side real quick before I give you a tournament winner. Gonzaga first half. They lost their last regular season game at St. Mary's as 10-point favorites. They were off for over a week, just rearing to go in this West Coast Conference tournament. Blow doors on San Francisco first half, 47-27 first half. They only won the game by 10. San Francisco covered. They had a bad second half. I expect them to come out remotivated again, looking ahead to St. Mary's, the team that beat them when the Zags were on the road. Zags laying 7 first half. I think they're going to come out and have another, double-digit lead here, just as they did in the regular season game that they did beat St. Mary's at home. So Zags come out and blow doors in this one tonight on Tuesday night. I'm going to go square chalk tournament winner. I know people like plus odds, but Duke minus 125 in a very down ACC. They're in the perfect spot. I took UNC plus 11.5 on Saturday, spoiled Coach K's final game. Losing that game is exactly what Duke needed. They are going to be motivated for this tournament. I expect them to win the 3 games against pretty poor competition in Brooklyn. They have a cakewalk schedule to reach the conference championship. So if you want to play like a Notre Dame or a Virginia on the other side to get some value maybe for the championship game, that's fine. But I'm very confident Duke's going to be there and extremely confident they'll probably win that game as well. They'll be much heavier favorite than minus 125, obviously, in the game. So I think losing to UNC and being in this spot and now playing for seeding, maybe get Coach K his last ACC tournament, perfect spot for Duke.
I'm very confident people need to check out at Julian Edlow on Twitter, as well as the Unreasonable Odds podcast. You can even find the one that I was on, which was awesome. He and Steve Buchanan do an awesome, awesome job. Julian, really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime, Ross, Steve. Thank you guys for having me.
Speaking of DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way, Steve, how about some of these gift ideas? You can get DraftKings gift cards now. Don't know what to get your buddy for his birthday? DraftKings gift card. I'm actually going to my buddy's house for the first night of March Madness. Rather than bringing over like a beer or something, I'm going to bring him a DraftKings gift card. Why not? He can bet on the March Madness. Want to give yourself a Father's Day present? DraftKings gift card. Done and done. Just visit DraftKingsGiftCard.com to find a participating store near you. March is here. Get in the game with these 2 awesome, fun, and easy account funding options. The other one is funding your account with cash. Just sign up with the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select Fund with Cash in the payment section, and get the digital barcode. Then just take your cash and barcode to any one of our thousands of participating stores. Super easy. Steve, any comments before we try to get to an email question? Any comments on college hoops, how things have changed the last few years? Anything?
Yes. It used to be if you woke up at 6:30 a.m., the early bird got the worm, Ross. So you get up, You're betting before anyone else into the virgin lines that are coming up on these conference tourneys, and you're getting really good value. Now, with the legalization of sports betting in so many states on the East Coast having legalized things, you know what? Set the alarm clock for 4 a.m. because 4:30 a.m., a lot of the virgin lines come up for the games, and they get hit immediately. So you're seeing things like conference tournament, championship game totals, and they open 140 at 4:30 a.m. and blink, and they go down 3 points within 18 minutes, sometimes within 30 seconds. So just leisurely doing your work and then looking at what the lines are isn't going to work anymore. More and more, even the smaller bettors are just attacking the opening numbers.
Love that, Steve. Love that. All right. Speaking of attacking, let's attack one of these questions, Bri.
Ever wanted to ask a professional sports bettor a question? It's time to Ask Steve.
Remember, anytime you take advantage of any of our sponsors, absolutely anytime, all you have to do is send it to me, ross@rosstucker.com. And then from there, you're able to ask any question of Steve you would like to ask. Here's one. Love all. This is from, who's this from? Jared. Love all your shows. Look forward to Tuesday Even Money podcast. All the information that you both bring to the table has helped me become a better NFL handicapper. Question is for Fez. This is a little bit late, but you can still tell him what you would have done. I have a futures wager I placed back in March. It's March, ironic, on the Rams to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,000. I know the right thing to do is to hedge myself with the Bengals money line. But my question is, at what percent of my wager would be appropriate to hedge in a way to guarantee winning money? I feel in my heart and mind the Rams are going to win the game, but I also know it's not foolproof, and I would be crazy to not hedge something. All right, so what's your advice, Steve, for Jared? It's too late now, but this is still a question a lot of people have. He had the Rams plus 1,000 win the Super Bowl. What would you have recommended he do at that point?
So this is going to come across as too much of a past post, but if you go back to my previous shows, Ross, you and I have done and other hits, I've always advocated this. He should have won double on this because in the Super Bowl, the money line is always too low on the favorite because the squares, the recreational bettors, bet the underdog to win outright. That's why when you have a year like this where the Rams win, but they don't cover, the books clean up. Because the recreational bettors lay 4 and 4.5 on the Rams, and the square ball bettors bet the Bengals to win outright on the money line so that the number comes down too much. And in fact, Mattress Mac, the dude in Houston that had a guarantee if the Bengals would have won, he bet the money line on the Bengals for like $6 million. Might have been 5, might have been 8. I don't recall. So you had bargains on the Rams money line. So if you're betting the Rams in the Super Bowl, we talked about this in our podcast, you should have been laying minus 180 on the Rams. If you're betting the Bengals, you could have gotten plus 4.5, minus 105 in Vegas at some shops. So I only like to play back when it's life-changing money, a big score, or if you can have positive expectation. So in this case, the fact that you could get the Bengals plus the 4.5, I think I don't know if I would have hedged it all the way back. If he was going to win 1,000, a $330 to win $300 bet on the Bengals plus 4.5 reduced vig would have been what I would have recommended.
I don't know how you do all that in your head. It's unbelievable. But what I've taken from you a million times is it's about getting the best of the number. I mean, 4 a.m., that I could do. That I'm an early riser. That I could absolutely do. I can also check you out on social media at Fezzik Sports. That is the key. Again, at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Take advantage of some of our sponsors. Send me some more email questions. Love it. We'll be getting to them throughout next week. It's all about the NCAA tournament. We'll get all of Steve's bets. It'll be fantastic. You got to keep listening to the show every single week. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL if you want to watch. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for listening to the Even Money Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, The Fantasy Feast, Business of Sports, and The College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.